Hi everyone and welcome back to Tambarara. Today I'm joined by my co-host Cornelius and we've just come back from a very interesting tour of Proplastics. Of course I'm joined here with key management if they would like to introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm Kudachigi. I'm the CEO of Proplastics.
Thank you. I'm Pascal Chawunda. I'm the FD at Proplastics.
Right. And of course, we've got some very insightful information to share with you guys, and of course, ready to interview the top management at the firm. Just want to make sure, how are you guys doing?
We're doing fairly okay given the circumstances.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we are doing fine. Given the operating environment, we're pushing on, and no major complaints,
right,
except what's happening now.
So yeah, of course, just for the sake of our viewers, I think it'd be a great interest for both me and Cornelius just to hear your guys' backgrounds, how you guys got yourselves into the situation, how you found yourselves with Proplastics. So maybe CEO, you can give a start.
Yeah, we'll give a start. Like we had said already, the operating environment is fairly difficult. It's been deteriorating over the years. And we've seen it coming, and it's still going. Our wish is at some stage there has to be a slowdown in all this turmoil that is happening. It's not healthy for the businesses, and it's not helpful for the economy at large.
Right.
We have managed to deploy some strategies to just ensure that the business continues to sustain itself going forward. We've got a lot of issues that are happening to do with the currencies, the local currency, the US dollar, and the announcement that are happening as well. But as management, we've deployed some mitigatory measures that ensure that Proplastics as a business continues to survive given the deteriorating economic environment.
Now, of course, in your input as the FD, what do you like?
Well, yeah, challenges are there, and certainly I think Casey has touched on most of them. Major issues are currency issues. That is significant as we want to source and finance raw materials, being a net importer, obviously. But those are things we are navigating through. Last year was a challenging year. We started fairly okay this year with stocks lined up, things coming through, and the factory running. But still, that doesn't mean the problems are gone. We still face those challenges, but we tackle them every day. And I think so far so good. We've managed to keep going.
Yeah, and of course that's the job of management. So yeah, I think Cornelius, maybe you can kick us off with any questions you might have just for these two and about Proplastics as a whole.
Yeah, no, when I hear about you guys on the news, it's mainly linked to the auction backlog, struggling to get USD for imports. How have you navigated that this year? And going forward, how will you deal with that? I know you're pushing an export strategy as well, so I'd like to hear more on that as well.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. I think all the 2021 allocations were cleared, and since January, I think the first movement was this week. The allocations that were done on our first allocation in January. So we actually are about already 4 or 5 months behind in terms of the allocation. So for us to be able to survive, besides the exports, we also have got US dollar denominated sales that we generate within the business. And also our pricing strategy was deliberate so that we can attract more US dollar. Like PC, Pascal is actually confirmed earlier on that we're a net importer. About 95% of our raw materials are imported. So exports combined with US dollar based sales have actually been keeping us going. But also you must remember we've got lots of funds that are locked in the auction that has not been descended. It's our working capital that is lying idle. And also it doesn't augur well with our foreign suppliers as we've got credit terms that needs to be looked after in terms of payments, which we are almost risking having them red flagged already.
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed your significant growth in your export revenue. I think it was up 149%. And I think it's extremely impressive. Where are you mainly exporting to? Which markets do you rely on?
Dominantly it's Zambia, followed by Mozambique. Then thirdly it's your Botswana and South Africa. But Zambia has actually been our biggest importing country. I think on average we're looking at about anywhere between 85 and 90% for exports going into Zambia.
But I mean, if you're talking about exports, surely there's competitors in that kind of industry. Are you guys afraid of that, or are you guys the sort of main suppliers outside? What's your sort of strategy, like just building out into the region?
I think you've seen the state-of-the-art factory that we've put here at Proplastics. I think in the past 2-3 years we've sunk close anywhere between 12 and 14 million United States dollars in upgrading that facility. Built a world-class factory. We benchmarked ourselves not just with African countries. All the equipment that you have seen actually is imported from Europe. And we are of the belief that we've put an efficient factory that can compete with anybody in the region. And we are riding on that, on our efficiencies that are generating from that factory. And that's the reason why we are competitive in those countries. We have gone and analyzed the way they do business and the way they do their production. And we have actually surpassed that in terms of technological advancement that we've put in our business. And I think that's the core competencies that we have. Without that, everything else can be easily eliminated.
Right. And of course, just speaking like maybe capital expenditure, I've seen your state-of-the-art factories here. Are you guys thinking of maybe expanding and putting factories in other regions, or right now it's just mainly producing here and then exporting?
It's something that we are courting aggressively, though at the moment we are doing it stealthily so that we don't overexpose that initiative. We are looking at regional countries, precisely Botswana. We are looking at Zambia in terms of partnership. We're also looking at even Mozambique.
Okay.
I think, in my own opinion, I think Pascal will allude that in terms of pipe production, we have put in enough capital investment into this business that any other capital requirements that we require going forward are just an improvement from where we are. But the structure of the business is so efficient that even in South Africa, you can hardly pick up a factory that is constructed in the manner that we've done Proplastics.
No, interesting. Yeah, go on, please.
And I know I'm approaching the election here. Are there any projects that you guys are being supported by in terms of government expenditure?
Yes, there are quite a number of projects that they've started. First, they were the devolution funds. I think you heard about that. They were distributed to most of the municipalities in the RDCs. We saw some traction on that type of funding, but it has seemed to have dried up right now as we speak. The project that the government are partaking are actually water infrastructure based. They are sustaining a lot of dams, and they are wanting to transport a lot of water to towns and cities that have perennially been facing problems. I think we are fully aware of Blawayo. It has got perennial problems. They are almost completing the Kwaishangani Dam, and there's a pipeline that is going to transport water from Kwaishangani Dam to Blawayo. Obviously, it's not our size, it's out of our range, but the tributaries, the arteries and the veins that are required when water arrives in Blawayo, definitely that's where we'll come in as Proplastics. There's also some major infrastructure upgrade in terms of your sewer rehabilitations in towns like Chitungiza. We've seen the government having keen interest on that. And over and above that, the war in the Eastern Europe, precisely Russia and Ukraine, caused some serious export of wheat precisely. And we foresee the government trying to cover that gap by investing in irrigation infrastructure. And we've already seen some inquiries coming through, and we are looking forward to tapping on that initiative by the government.
Yeah, I was going to get to that question as well. The agricultural season was below average rainfall. That should benefit you guys in terms of irrigation, although that requires a bit of electricity generation as well.
Yes, it affects us in a couple of ways, including the two that you have mentioned. But you must also remember, if our agricultural season was below average, even the dams we were supposed to harvest water to do the irrigation will also not be able to supply us fully to support the entire irrigation season, the winter one and the summer one at the same time. So it will affect us, but also in another way, a lot of initiative have been happening in terms of bore drilling as an alternative. And we've got a product that we supply, which is bore casings. And we've seen phenomenal growth in that type of business.
Yep. Just to again touch on what Cornelius has started on, I'm sure all of you are quite interested, is that manufacturing is a very energy intensive industry. How do you guys handle your situation in terms of ZESA and reliability of power supply? How do you guys get around those kind of issues, and how does it affect your margins or operations?
It's been an issue actually in terms of power supply. Since the beginning of the year, we've lost about 13 to 15 days of power supply interruptions, mostly to do with the faults that are happening on the old infrastructure. How we are going to handle that on the fault side is that we've already started engaging ZESA so that we can have a semi-dedicated line, a new line, to ensure that we get rid of the old line that is giving us problems, and that will actually, reduce the amount of power interruptions. Over and above that, yesterday we were also concluding a solar deal, not fully concluded, that is going to give us about half a megawatt, which is about half the amount of power that we require in this business. That will only assist us during the day, because in terms of storage for solar, I don't think we have the capacity to be able to store the amount of energy that the plant requires. Over and above that, all the machines that we've also bought are energy efficient as well, so that we can minimize the amount of power consumption that we have in this factory. But besides that, we are at the disposal of ZESA to ensure that they should be able to supply us enough power to run the plant.
Okay, no, definitely. Again, yeah, just again, I just more interested in like how the numbers look. Say in a world where ZESA is not an issue, what would you say your projections for, say, your revenues or volumes going into next year? Maybe that's a question for Pascal.
Yeah, look, we are targeting at about 9,000 tons for the year. Of course, all things being equal, I think we are sorted on the raw material side. The factory I've just seen, it's quite ready to go. Of course, ZESA challenges will become an issue. Funding issues, of course, will also come into play. But all things being equal, yeah, we are looking at actually hitting about 9,000 tons, which is almost double what we were doing previously. So we are looking forward to that. And that obviously comes with the revenue as well. Once the volumes move, the revenues will also move. Of course, there will be a bit of inflationary pressures, both on the local front and also even in USD. If raw materials go up, naturally we've got to pass on part of it, and that will also drive the revenue. So yeah, we expect the revenues to respond in line with the volumes.
Yeah, no, perfect. Again, you mentioned USD and your projection going forward. We know this weekend our president gave an announcement and introduced a bunch of measures. How do you think that's going to affect Proplastics going forward?
Well, yeah, certainly that's going to affect. Of course, the major issue is on the lending side. Of course, we expect that to be temporary, but we don't know how temporary. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. Only time will tell. We are not heavily borrowed as a business. I think we've managed to finance quite a bit of what we've done through our own internal resources, but we've started to move our borrowings up as we beef up our working capital. Remember, the factory is now there, but it also has got to be fed, and we need quite a sizable amount of raw material, and we've had to borrow. So you would find as we sit, probably our debt equity is now sitting at around 16 to 20%. Previously, we've done 5 to 8%. So we've actually ramped up the borrowings a bit. So if that avenue is closed, certainly that's going to have an impact. But also the president in his announcement did not do away with the multi-currency, which is good for us. Why? Because more than 50% of our revenue is also coming in USD. Sometimes hitting 60%, sometimes 70%, and sometimes on the extreme end, 80%. So once that avenue is still there, as Casey alluded to earlier on, it gives us that opportunity to say we can then generate our own revenue and finance the things we would like to finance through the US dollars that will be generating themselves. The movement in the rate to the interbank rate, I think now we've got a cocktail of rates. And the auction rate, the interbank, well, it's neither here nor there, because my view is what really drives this market are probably the market rate, which would be the alternative market or the parallel rate, if we want to use that. So that affects pricing and a lot of other things. But for us, it will still be good in that now the interbank is a higher rate, and we've been accounting for our USD revenue at the auction rate. So we'll then naturally move on to the interbank rate. And that will help the numbers. Because when you look at our revenues as we present, anything that comes in US was at auction, so it was valued priced. So that movement is most welcome, but unfortunately still far from the actual bucket rate. So which means we'll always be having a revenue that's depressed because of the exchange rates that are being used.
But that also depends on your market power locally. How is your market share in terms of local players, in terms of smuggling of pipes from South Africa and whatnot? How has that affected you guys locally?
Okay, yeah, locally, yeah, the smuggling is a big issue. I think we feel it somehow, pipes being smuggled in. But of course, there's also competition locally. I won't be talking much about competition, mentioning them for obvious reasons, but yeah, but we are the biggest players still, with the competition there, strong as it might be, but we are stronger. So we fight for our market share, we fight to keep our market share, and that shouldn't be a problem. But of course, we also need the authorities to assist, especially on the smuggling things, because these imports become another competitor, and then that is a problem. Maybe KC might want to add on that as well.
Yeah, so in terms of figures, Zimbabwe last year alone imported 3.92 million worth of plastic pipe and fittings, up from about 2.7 million in 2020. This is actually foreign currency that is going out of the country, precisely. And this is the same foreign currency that we need to buy raw materials so that we remain productive. We are contributing to the economy in a big way, taxes, employment that we have, rates that we are paying. So I think, in my own opinion, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce must put a cartel of measures to ensure that they slow down these imports. Combined, there are actually about 4 major players now in Zimbabwe that are doing plastic piping fittings. And I can easily say, if we are to run our factories to full capacity, we actually have got overcapacity in Zimbabwe.
So would you want them to put import quotas on the boats? And are you sure that the supply gap will then be fulfilled?
Not really. The way we, to be quite honest with you, the way we've constructed our factory, we are fearless of competition. But there is unfair competition where substandard goods are coming into the country at the expense of, this level of investments that we've done. Then that's not fair. Exactly. But if it was a quality product and it's coming and people or importers are saying it's cheaper than Proplastics, but the standards are the same, then that's another different ballgame altogether. But otherwise, a ban on quality products, that shouldn't happen, but a ban on substandard product that doesn't comply, that we advocate, the ministry is responsible to try and help us on it.
And given your strong USD contribution of revenue, I take it your biggest customers are the mining sector in USD revenue.
Yes, the mining sector are beginning to grow, but it's actually not our biggest. Our biggest is actually your normal consumption for your civils, where people are constructing their houses, followed by your agriculture, then perhaps mining, then you've got your board drillers and the like. Yes.
Yeah, I'll say just to sort of build on Kanis's question, as much as that's the ranking of your biggest revenue contributors, what do you say is the sort of growth in terms of trend? What's growing the most? What's you're catching up to the other in that kind of regard?
I think from 2021 the traction was good in terms of the growth trajectory for Zimbabwe at large. But we've seen it has begun slowing down because of all these issues and the complexities, the volatilities that are happening in the markets exactly. So we're seeing that slow down. And in my own opinion, I don't think the projections that we're having at the beginning of this year will be the same at the end of this year. We have seen that shrink that is happening at a phenomenal rate that will even affect the demand for our product in the market. Because the fundamentals that are happening in the market are affecting the very same consumer that needs to buy our product.
Yeah.
But buying our product is an investment. But we're looking at our consumers wanting to pay school fees, wanting to put food on the table for their families. I think that will come first at the expense of investments.
Yeah.
And the question for FD, since you've spoken about your working capital challenges, how will that affect dividend payments going forward? I think shareholders.
Yeah, well, our policy has been to pay dividends. We've been consistent on that ever since we listed. I think for the past 5-6 years, we've been doing that. We'll continue to pay dividend, so our shareholders can be assured. Of course, for this year, we declared a dividend with a scrip option. We sometimes do that, but going forward, it will probably be cash dividends because we have already built up our working capital. We won't be building on it every day. The business itself has got the ability to generate cash. It's a very good cash generating business. So on that basis, we should be able to fund our working capital and also be able to consistently pay the dividend. Remember, we don't have much pressures now on the capital side because we've arrived at the tail end of the investments we're making, so which leaves us in a good space to be able to continue to declare dividend.
Would you say you have a specified payout ratio, or is it just dependent on how you